You're watching World News from Indonesia's Pioneer News Channel, Metro TV. I'm Krizia Alexa, and here are the main stories today. Tension in the Korean peninsula continues to be tense and no end seen this year. North Korean refusal to allow family reunions and South Korean insistence on holding military exercises are among the stumbling blocks. French politics have seen their shares of scandals, but still they keep on appearing. The latest linked to President François Hollande. Living with a partner in the palace, he is also reported seeing an artist. Hollande already contemplating a privacy infringement case against the magazine carrying his alleged discretion. Floods inundated Jakarta on Monday after heavy rains that poured since Sunday evening. Nearly 12,000 people had to be evacuated to schools and other public buildings, some rubber rafts. One person was reported died from a heart attack while trying to save his car. Until Monday afternoon, evacuations continued and assistance were distributed to affected areas of the capital. Power in several areas were turned off as a safety step against accidental electricity shorts. Meanwhile, at least 13 people have been killed in southeastern Philippines due to floods and landslides triggered by heavy rains. The emergency agency said that the flooding has affected 132,000 people from 10 provinces. People in Tonga are assessing damages after a powerful storm hit the Pacific nation on the weekend. Between 300 and 400 homes were damaged by Cyclone Ian, which hit with gusts of almost 290 kilometers per hour on Saturday. Officials said relief efforts were concentrated on the Ha'apai Islands, one of Tonga's 3 island groups. The Ha'apai Islands are home to 8,000 people, most of whom live in the islands of Lifuka and Foa. Officials said an elderly woman was killed on the island of Lifuka. Prime Minister Siale Ataongo Tu Ifakano said that thousands of people have been left homeless. And now let's take a look at what the weather will be like across the world today. Jakarta will be rainy while Singapore will have a dry but cloudy day. Tokyo will see some snow, Beijing will be sunny, and London will also have a dry but cloudy day. The number of homes destroyed in weekend forest fires in the Australian city of Perth has risen dramatically. Authorities now say 50 homes have been lost in the Perth Hills. The blaze started in Parkerville on Sunday morning, thought to have been started by a fallen power line in the city's wooded fringes. The fire was fanned by strong winds and scorching temperatures quickly spreading to Stoneville and Mount Helena. One man died after he collapsed on the roof of his home while trying to prepare for another blaze in the area. Huge crowds of anti-government protesters took over key areas of Bangkok on Monday in the hope of forcing out Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra. Thousands of people in a group of marches blocked traffic and occupied roads in and around the business district. The intensified protests, which could last weeks or more, were peaceful and even festive on Monday. But there are fears the protests could turn violent as at least 8 people have been killed in the crisis. Meanwhile, Yingluck Shinawatra again was forced to call a cabinet meeting away from the Prime Minister office. For over 2 months, she had to work away from her office, which is surrounded by protesters. Other government offices, banks, and private companies are closed on Monday. Over 1 million Bangkok residents are expected to be affected by the Bangkok shutdown. Amid the rising tension between North and South Korea, U.S. military still held a joint exercise with their southern counterpart. South Korea said this is an annual exercise for defense, but the North intensified its criticism against Seoul.
12 of the U.S. forces' F-16 combat jets will be deployed to Osan Air Force Base in mid-January. The rotational deployment of a mechanized battalion was recently decided upon, while the chemical battalion and attack helicopters were redeployed last year. Some of the forces will take part in the Key Resolve joint military exercise slated for later next month. North Korea, which had rejected South Korea's proposal to hold family reunions, intensified its criticisms against Seoul.
이 합동군사 연습의 북침 공격적이며 호전적 성격을 가리워보려 하고 있습니다.
The South Korean Ministry of National Defense responded that Key Resolve and the subsequent exercise Full Eagle defensive drills have been conducted since 2002.
연례적인, 정례적인 또 기계획된 훈련입니다. 방어적 성격의 훈련이고요.
At the same time, Seoul stressed that if the regime uses the military exercise as an excuse for provocations, the South Korea-US alliance would suppress it. South Korea's defense ministry plans to notify Pyongyang of the schedules and purposes of the Key Resolve joint exercise through the UN command in Korea at the end of the month.
Asian markets were mixed on Monday after a worse-than-expected jobs report from the United States, leading to a hold on any cuts on the stimulus program. Jakarta, Hong Kong, and Seoul rose at the closing, as Tokyo was closed for a public holiday. Singapore ended negative. After being in an 8-year comatose state, former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon will finally be buried Monday, celebrated as a hero in Israel, but loathed by Palestinians as a bloodthirsty criminal. U.S. Vice President Joe Biden and former British Prime Minister Tony Blair headed the list of visitors who attended Sharon's funeral ceremony. He will be buried in South Israel next to his second wife. Sharon was born in Palestine in 1928, is known as a ruthless military leader who fought in Israel's wars. He then switched to politics in 1973 and pursued the development of illegal Jewish settlement in the occupied Palestinian land. Sharon was also responsible in the 1982 massacre of hundreds of Palestinians by Israel's Lebanese Falagins in Beirut, Sabra, and Shatila refugee camps. Just days before, 52 million voters will decide whether to support amendments to the Constitution, hundreds of students supporting President Mohamed Morsi battled security forces at a Cairo university. During the clashes on Sunday, police fired tear gas at the students, who in turn threw fireworks back at the police. Egypt's military-backed interim president Adli Mansour urged voters to head to the polls to cast ballots on Tuesday and Wednesday. The military overthrew Morsi in a coup back in July. Coming up in world news. Flooding gets worse in parts of the United Kingdom, with more than 60 warnings issued.